And welcome to the UGO podcast, another interview edition here, guys, and I am very excited to have with us, for the first time on this podcast, he's joined us on some of our other projects, but first time here on UGO, John C. McGinley. Say hi, John.
How are you, Nick? Good to hear your voice again.
I am excited to hear your voice again as well. We had you on before for our other podcast, Pot Against Evil, to talk about your role in Stand Against Evil. And then, actually on that interview, you actually mentioned, the movie we're about to talk about, which was Benched, in which it's based off the play Rounding Third, I believe. And, you play a Little League coach that is having a difficult time with his new assistant coach and your conflicting viewpoints. Would you like to go in a little bit, about your character and, what, you're portraying in this film as regards to, male bonding and relationships?
Well, I think what Benched is about what we do to each other when we feel inadequate, or when we're scared, or when we're trying to juggle fear with manipulating each other and positioning around another man, and it's the catalyst for sometimes not always great behavior or not morally sound behavior. And that's okay, because we all deal with fear differently. And if you couple fear and inadequacy with someone's life falling apart, maybe from their fear and inadequacies, now you got something going. Now you have a conflict field that's really rich. And that's largely what happens to my character, Coach Don, in the movie Benched, is the wheels are coming off. And he has to deal with it, or not deal with it, whatever he's capable of doing. And he just keeps layering conflicts onto himself by bringing Garrett Hedlund's character in much too close a proximity to his life, and relying on Garrett's character for an asset that Garrett doesn't have, and just setting up situation after situation which are guaranteed to fail. Mm-hmm. Now you got something that the camera's going to start to soak up.
Yeah, it's. I'm glad you mentioned your co-star Garrett Hedlund as the assistant coach Michael. I feel like your two relationships really is the core of the film, and it's very interesting, in my opinion, to see a male relationship that's so focused on conversations, and especially even in a male testosterone dominated game like baseball is, how open and honest you two are with each other throughout the film. What was it like working with Garrett?
Well, I've known of Garrett's work for a long time. He also went to NYU grad school after I did, and so we both had phenomenal experiences at NYU, probably 10 years apart. But it gave us a shorthand to speak in, and a common thread in our training background. And from the work Garrett did in Deadwood, David Milch's show, where they killed off Garrett's character in the first season or two, and then they brought him back as an entirely different character. It's the most flattering thing I've ever seen an executive director of a TV show do for an actor. And Garrett was just miraculous. And so I was thrilled when I had been attached to this project for quite a while, and I had no small amount of apprehension about who was going to play Coach Michael. And when Garrett's name finally came up, I didn't have casting approval, and I'm not the producer of this, but I selfishly wanted whoever was going to play Mike to be great. And I got my wish with Garrett. He's just a spectacular human being and an even better actor.
Yeah, it really is fantastic. I did not know that he came back for another role on Deadwood. That's fantastic. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
It's unheard of.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a drunk kind of bum in his first go round, and then he comes back as a dandy assassin. After they kill the bum, he comes back as this really handsome, deadly assassin, and it's just unheard of. Biggest compliment you could possibly pay an actor.
right? Like, you were so good that even though we killed you, we got to bring you back. That's really good. So you did some preparation for this film, I hear, because you were making this around the same time as Belko Experiment. Am I correct?
Yeah, so I had the script, I had the offer, and then I decided I would go down to Bogota and for 3 months and do Belko. And I was down there with this astonishing ensemble of actors, many of whom I did not know, except for Tony Goldwyn. Tony and I have known each other for 30 years. And I'm very dialogue-like in Belko. And so I really just have to react and do do Tony's bidding. But I am the initiator in Benched. And so it's a very dialogue-driven film. And I drive most of the dialogue, which is a heck of a challenge. And so I rented a rehearsal space down in Bogota, Colombia. And whenever I identified one of the actors who were light on the call sheet, I literally kidnapped them and took them to my rehearsal space, and I made them rehearse with me on Benched. And I did this for the better part of 3 months, so that by the time I got to Nashville, where I went about 24 hours after I was wrapped in Bogota, I went straight to Nashville. And I was loaded for bear by the time I got to Nashville. I was loaded for bear. I knew I was like the screenplay, the play, and the film were called Rounding Third. And I was a Rounding Third scholar by the time I got there. And so there was nothing that we hadn't deconstructed. There was nothing we hadn't considered. And Garrett was so good about really going anywhere I wanted to go that as soon as the directors called action, we were off and running, man. It was glorious.
Well, I think that prep time really worked off with your character, and especially the back and forth, like you were saying. It's funny you should say that down in Bogota, Colombia. I guess if I were to get kidnapped, I'd prefer to be by you to do line reads than anything else.
I didn't even think about it. I shouldn't use that word. It's the kidnap capital of the world. I got to not use that word anymore.
Yeah, but no, that's fine. I think it's more of a relief. Like, oh, it's just John. Oh, thank God.
With them.
Mm-hmm. So, like I was saying before, this conversations you have, they become more and more honest throughout the film, to the point where I don't know, like when I watch other sports movies and other, like, you know, guy movies or dude movies, however you want to call them, there's normally a lot of like pushback of, like, you know, men don't talk about their feelings sort of thing, but there's a lot of feelings talk in this movie, and like it feels like both the characters don't really have that like pushback of, like, they're really open with one another for people that are honestly basically kind of strangers. What is your mindset when you're playing Coach Don, who's a guy that, like you said before, his just life is just kind of coming down and just like breaking down around him, and he has almost no control over it by the end of the film?
Well, because it is a life unraveling, and it's a look at somebody's life unraveling right before our eyes. What I had to do, and what I did down in Bogota, and what I did with my teacher here in Los Angeles before I went to South America, was where we found the map, where we found the answers, in that lovely monologue that Coach Don has in the gymnasium, in the bleachers, with Garrett's character, when he talks about how when he was in Little League as a young boy, and he was at bat with a runner on third named Billy Nathan, and that Billy Nathan somehow drifted into some dream state, some haze, and while he was there, he got kicked off third, and in doing so, he took the bat out of Don's hands, young Don's hands, and ostensibly robbed him of his ups. In baseball parlance, ups is your at bat. And so I think as we charted it forward, Don's self-imposed mandate is that if you participate on his team the way he tells you to, and if you adhere to the different disciplines that he's going to impose on you, he's going to save your ups. You're going to get your at bat. You're never going to be exposed to the horrible experience he had of not being able to contribute, because he tells us that he knows that if he could have gotten up to bat, he would have driven Billy Nathan home, and they would have won the game and the championship. But instead, he was robbed of that. He didn't even get to come up to bat. He didn't get his chance. It's not like he struck out or he hit a grounder to short and he was thrown out. He didn't get a chance. The bat was taken out of his hands. And I guess to him, I know to him, that is just anathema. That's not something that's okay. And so I think for the rest of his life moving forward, he, especially as a baseball coach, that he's going to put these young guys in a position to be able to have their ups. What they do when they're in the batter's box is that's all up to them. But I'm going to get you your ups. And that felt like this great, great charge to give this guy. And even against all these things falling apart, but one thing he's going to do, and we see it as the season progresses, he's going to get you in the batter's box. You're going to get your ups. And in Little League, everybody wants their ups. And that's what Coach Don's going to get you. And it just, and as we picked the script apart and put it back together and we focused in on this one monologue, it just yielded so many answers and dividends. And when you find something like that in a script, it's just a treasure chest to go and use it and support different actions and arcs that the character is going to go on. And that's what we did. And it's astonishing to me that I can still I still remember the whole thing, since words and stories go in one ear and out the other with me. But we worked so hard on that for so long. And then when we shot it, it was 3 6-day weeks, which is now the common schedule, which I don't love, but it's what happens with low budget independence. It's how they shot The Good Catholic. It's how we shot Benched. And so you go Monday to Sunday morning, and you do not come up for air. And then you have Sunday off, you get a meal, you work out, you look at Monday's work, and then you're back at it Monday. And you do this for 3 weeks in a row. It's 18 shooting days, and you're done. It's over. You really just have to stay so focused, and you have to do so much preparation, because 18 days, if anything goes wrong, we're not going back to pick it up. We're not going to do reshoots. We're not going to do that many takes. We're just going to go. We're going to grind this thing out. And against that schedule, Benched came out magnificently. I think in large part because all those young actors, the young boys who play on my team, are magnificent. They're just magnificent.
No, it was really great to see some kids that I could tell. Like, I guess they definitely have some baseball experience, but like still like little league experience, to where the plays and stuff that they make are just feel very real. I love the story. No, go ahead.
They were real. Those kids were they're little league baseball players.
That's what I figured, is that they felt legit. I loved that monologue that you were talking about, and I love my favorite part about it is when he mentions Billy Nathan ran for student council like a year or so back, and he couldn't bring himself to vote for him because it's like he's a nice enough guy and everything, but he had that one time that I held against him. It was just really eye-opening for Don's character for me. I just thought that was.
I agree.
Right,
I agree. I think all the answers are right there. I couldn't agree more.
There's a lot of answers in that one monologue right there. So I love how invested Don is in the games, and how like even when he makes the bad call, he never blames the kid. Like there's one moment where he's like, I told you to run, and it was my bad, and he gets devastated, and he's more mad with himself than even any of his kids. Are you a fan of baseball, or did you have coached Little League before? Because it felt very like you had experience with it.
No, I was a camp counselor for about 10 summers up in New Hampshire at a boys' athletic camp. But no, I was, because my son Max was turning 21 at the end of the month. Max was born with his own challenges. Max was born with Down syndrome, and so as a result, I've been largely sheltered from kind of the whole Little League of it all. It wasn't our path. And so I didn't really get exposed to these jackass fathers and mothers who scream bloody murder on the sidelines, and these helicopter parents who think their kids are going to get a full ride at Stanford to play soccer. And it's like, no, they're not. They're not going to make the high school team, for God's sake. And so I was largely sheltered from them. And so what I could bring to Don was a guy. I know there are times in our lives when one part of our life is falling apart, and so we kind of naturally lean in on maybe a different part. And that's what happens in Benched, that so many things, the wheels have fallen off for this guy. A lot of his life has fallen apart. The one thing that makes sense to him is baseball. He's good at coaching baseball, and he leans into it hard. And he's coached guys to championships, and he's had a large degree of success with Little League Baseball. And so that's what we run towards. We run towards what we're good at when everything else is falling apart. And so that was my key into this guy. That's where the shelter from the storm was. That's where he could excel, even as everything else was absolutely hitting the fan. He could excel with these young kids, and maybe he leans in a little too hard, and that's okay. But that's where I was coming from.
No, that makes sense. So obviously this is based off of a play, and obviously there's probably changes that need to be made when you make a play into a movie. Is there anything in the play that had to be changed for the movie that you can remember that was like? Well,
the big change with the play is that when there's only two actors on stage in theater parlance for the whole play, it's called a two-hander. And so Benched, or Rounding Third, the play that Benched is based on, was a two-hander. And so Garrett's character and my character are just up on stage the whole time, creating all this off-stage life, but we never see it. There's no kids in the play. There's no lovers. There's no best friends. There's these two guys, and they create the whole thing. And so when Richard Dresser had a chance to open it up and integrate all this off-stage life onto screen, I think he really relished that. And it doesn't, the film doesn't read like a play at all. It's this well-realized big motion picture.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. So with your performance here, would you say Don is based off of any coaches in real life that you based him off of, or
no? He was a guy I built from scratch from Richard's script. I thought all the landmarks and all the path that he had to hew was really well drawn in the script. And if you were true to Richard's words, really true to him, we didn't change a goddamn thing. If you were really true to what Richard put on the page, there was a really clear path where you were to go. And so that's what Garrett and I did.
Keeping to the spirit, I like it. See, I wouldn't know if he was based off of a coach or whatnot. I'm not very sports inclined, but I do love sports movies, which I feel is weird. But I'm not a big fan of sports, but I feel sports movies are like there's something special about them. Like I can't put my finger on it. Some sort of like American dream kind of spirit.
Yeah, I buy that.
That seems to only be captured in stuff like a baseball or football movie or something like that. What would you say is one of your favorite, sports movies that you find particularly compelling?
Let's see. When we were growing up, I thought Brian's song about Brian Ficcolo and Gail Sayers was a TV movie with Billy Dee Williams and Jimmy Caan. I thought that was pretty spectacular. I thought the Tom Cruise football movie with that Cuba won the Academy Award for. Jerry Maguire. I thought that was spectacular. And I thought that I got a chance to be in 42, the Jackie Robinson movie, where I just thought that was really different level. I thought Chadwick Boseman as Jackie Robinson was different level. He was playing on a whole different level.
Well, I forgot about that movie. That's actually a great movie. I love Chadwick Boseman.
Was great in it, playing Branch Rickey. I thought Harrison Ford was magnificent in that movie.
Oh, sure. Absolutely fantastic. Well, obviously we've been talking for a little bit about the film. Is there anything that you would like to mention that, like, maybe a enriching experience or something that you want to mention to the listeners to really bring them out and why is Benched, something that they should go out and watch?
Because there's nothing else out there like it. It's a family comedy. There's a ton of heart. The third act is very moving, and there's no other film out there like
it. Nothing out there like it. That's as good enough a pitch as I've ever heard. Well, you heard him yourself, folks. Go give Benched Out a try. It'll be out in theaters Friday, August 17th. And you can watch it at your local theater I think it's at a limited release, if I'm not mistaken, but I'll double check on that and make sure that's in the links in description correctly. Otherwise, John, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, my friend.
Hopefully I'll see you at Comic-Con.
I will definitely see you at Comic-Con. I'm making it happen, that's for sure.
Fantastic.